Hello, my name is Annalisa Best, and for my pop culture presentation, I am going to be looking at the double standards for women athletes. Women in sports was an unheard of concept or idea before July 23rd, 1972, when Title IX passed and women were allowed to participate in sports. Women's sports since then have grown over 1,000% at a high school level and 600% at a college level. Yet this trend did not continue into their media presence, coverage, treatment, equipment, or the care that they received at NCAA tournaments or other college competitions. Up here, we have Katie Ledecky, who is a distance swimmer for Team USA. She attends Stanford University, but just transferred to Florida. You have Sierra Williams, who is a tennis player. You have the Team USA soccer players, Ronda Rousey, and the NCAA women's basketball players. Just to name a few and show you a few women who are big names in sports. This idea of inequality between male and female sports seemed to be in the past since Title IX has passed. But yet this is not true. These issues of inequalities are still happening to this day. In March 18th, 2021, NCAA hosted the men and women's basketball March Madness tournament in Texas. For those of you who are not familiar with college basketball, March Madness is one of the biggest competitions a college level basketball player can be in. During this tournament, an Oregon State sophomore on the women's basketball team documented some of the major differences between the women and men's facilities, nutrition, and perks. Since the NCAA March Madness this year took place during COVID, the athletes were kept in a bubble so that they were not exposed to anybody who has COVID-19. This means all of their food, equipment, sleeping was all provided, or sleeping areas, excuse me, were all provided by the NCAA. So these are images that have come from the NCAA from that Oregon State sophomore. This first image is the weight room. On the left is the men's weight room who has, who have weighted benches, bench presses, squat racks, free weights, plate weights, and other exercise equipment. As you can see, this makeshift gym is very large and can have many athletes in there working out at the same time, if of course it was COVID safe. On your right, on the other image, there is the entirety of the women's basketball team's weight room. Just a couple little dumbbells. This suggests that the women don't need weights because they are not as strong as the male counterparts, or that they don't deserve them because they don't work out as much. On the bottom image, you have the women and men's food. The women's food looked like it was frozen for weeks before the tournament and then just thrown in the microwave, full of preservatives and not fresh, which is very important for an athlete going into any competition. Fresh food and good nutrition. The men's food seemed to be homemade or catered to by a company. It was definitely very different than the women's team's meals. Our last image at the top was the merchandise and swag that was received by the men's and women's basketball team. The men's team, as you can see, received blankets, many Lysol wipes, shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, t-shirts, bags, hats, pillows, books, CDs, stickers, keychains, Cards, patches, towels, you name it, the men's team were provided it. And of course, as expected, well, not expected, but since these images, you can see that the women's basketball team barely received barely received half of what the men's team did during the 2021 NCAA March Madness tournament. When NCAA was confronted by millions of people on the internet when the Oregon sophomore basketball player posted these videos and images to social media, specifically the platform TikTok, NCAA reported only on the gym equipment. They stated that it was not a budget problem, but a space problem, which again was proven wrong by the same Oregon State sophomore player, who showed 3 empty basketball courts that were not used at all. The NCAA did not comment on the food quality or the difference in supplies between the men and women teams. When the NCAA board members were discussing the differences between the men and women's equipment, they brought up the different ratings between the men and women's sports. Yet these games happened on the same day, and the women's games were at less popular times to watch the games. The men's basketball games were when everybody was off of work and out of school. Yet the women's games happen during the day when it is less likely for somebody to watch, or the mass majority to watch TV. During our lecture, our professor talked about decoding and encoding. By the actions of the NCAA, it was clear that we can decode that the women's basketball team was not a priority. They were treated as if they were not as important as the male athletes who play the same sport as them and who put in the same amount of training as them to get where they are. This was obviously not directly stated by the NCAA, but it can be decoded by the actions when they were confronted by the inequality they have created within their organization. Media representation of women have also shown a major inequality. Women are represented in the women are also represented in the media as stereotypical, making them look weak, sexual objects, and small. These athletes, such as Natalie Kaufman, is a decorated Olympian breaststroker, and she is anything but those things. She is a strong woman. You see over here Serena Williams, same thing, all done up in makeup and not playing her sport on a Sports Illustrated cover magazine, whereas the male's Golden State Warrior basketball player is shown during his sport. Serena Williams is sexualized in this cover, whereas the Golden State Warrior basketball player was shown manly and big. Suit Jolly discussed that media has created these 2 boxes in which each gender should fit in, that women should be small, weak, sexual objects, and subservient, as men should be strong, brave, manly. But these media pages, magazines, all of it was created by and for the male hegemonic system. And the only way to break it is to keep breaking these barriers that these women have done. When will it change? Who knows? But women must unite and call out these inequalities they face in their sports. This sophomore from Oregon University did just that. And she was not alone. Many other women athletes started bringing their problems and stories that they face in their own sports. One day, women will be able to play on the same platform as male athletes, but until then, women must remain strong and keep breaking those barriers that the society has set for them. They must make it better for these young athletes who are growing up today, watching them break these barriers and be strong. Because women are not weak or small. Women are strong and powerful, and they do not deserve the treatment that they have received. Thank you for listening. Stay healthy and safe. Here are my references as well. Thank you very much.